Hi, my name is David Klappenberger, and today we're going to talk about some tips and tricks to make painting jobs go faster and with higher quality. Now, I'm not going to cover all the tips and tricks, and I don't know all the tips and tricks. I know you know some things as well, and I would like you to comment at the bottom, and we're going to have a part 2 and a part 3, and we're going to share some really cool ideas that'll make the jobs go faster and look even more professional. Let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to talk about spackling. Easy sand is probably the most misused spackle that I see painting contractors make. It's really just to be used for patching small cracks, picture holes, dents, things like that. Not major spackling where you're actually taping, bonding, and smoothing the area. You can use it for the last pass, but not the first two. And I see a lot of painting contractors do that, and what happens is it could crack in those areas because the easy sand is not that durable. It's thin, it's great for dry, it's great for small patches. It's not good for patching an entire hole. I recommend using Durabond or the Green Top Ready Mix Spackle when you're doing the taping and bonding, and then use the easy sand at the end. If you are going to be using the Green Top Spackle, I'm sure you know you need to whip it up to get the air bubbles out, but you can also add liquid detergent like Palmolive or Ivory soap, liquid detergent. I add about 4 or 5 tablespoons to a pan full of spackle. Mix that in there. It doesn't foam up, doesn't even have a smell, but boy does it help the spackle go on so much smoother. It's night and day difference. It's like adding paint conditioner to paint. Once the spackle is ready to be sanded, you want to use a vacuum attachment. A vacuum attachment has sandpaper, a hose that hooks up to a shop vac, and it collects about 90% of the dust. But it still doesn't mean that you're not going to have to cover up the furniture and stuff. And I recommend having 2 layers of plastic over the furniture. You roll the first one up nice and easily. Still some dust will get in the air, but it's going to settle in that second layer of plastic that's still there. Then you gently roll up the second layer, and you're going to get either all of the dust, or there's going to be very little dust left behind. Certainly, we want to sand the walls before we paint. We want to sand them with a sanding pole. 120 grit sandpaper is great. It gets off the ditties. Definitely want to make sure you take off all the wall plates before you paint the walls. Moving back up to the ceiling. The ceiling, you can actually roll a ceiling and cut it in. And a lot of people use a brush or a little mini roller. The mini rolls is certainly better than a brush, but cutting it in with a 9-inch roller is perfectly fine too. As long as you don't have wallpaper or crown molding, something like that, you can cut in with a 9-inch roller pretty easily, and it does a nice job. I mean, you're going to have to paint the walls, of course, but it's okay to see those roller marks on the wall because they're not going to be there very long, and it won't have any permanent damage to it. If you have a lot of ceiling that you need to paint, like maybe over 1,000 square feet, if you need 3 gallons or so of paint to do your ceilings, you might want to invest in an 18-inch roller setup. That's an 18-inch roller, 18-inch pan, and an 18-inch frame. They really speed up the process. They actually go more than twice as fast of what a 9-inch roller can do. And if you're painting your walls, a lot of walls the same color, you can go ahead and use that same 18-inch setup to switch over and do your walls. I think a lot of homeowners balk at getting a premium grade paintbrush, or maybe they feel like they spent too much money on the paint already and they just want to try to save a couple bucks. Don't. A good quality a really good brush holds more paint and will give you straighter lines. So it's going to speed up the process, and it's going to give you better quality work. It's so much funner to work with. There's nothing more frustrating than working with a piece of junk paintbrush. I personally like the Wooster 2.5-inch angle sash nylon brush. It's a great brush. Don't skimp on the tools. Get good roller frames, get good roller covers, get a good brush, get good stuff, and you have to if you want to do a professional quality job. Let's go over the order of painting. You want to do your ceilings first, and then you want to do your door and window trim second. You want to do the walls third, and then the baseboard last. Why do you want to do your window and door trim first? Because it's easier to cut a straight line in on the wall than it is that little bit of reveal that's left on the trim of the window and the door. Here's an error that I see homeowners, do-it-yourselfers do, not so much painters. And that is they over-roll the walls. They go over the walls, they're rolling the walls, and they go over it too long. The paint is starting to adhere, the sheen is starting to set up, but nope, they want to go back and they want to sort of make it look a little bit nicer, a little bit more even, and they break the sheen and the surface becomes rough. You see differences in sheen, not good. Put it on with a moderately heavy, with a 1/2-inch nap roller. Put it on, just like this guy's doing behind me, doing an excellent job, and then he moves on to the next section. Some people like to tape things up. I personally think if you have a great paintbrush, you don't need to tape things up. But if you want to tape things up, here's a couple things you can do. If you just put blue tape on the surface, that's going to still allow paint to bleed through behind the tape. It gives you a false sense of security. You can put the tape on. And let's say you have white trim that you want to protect the line on. Once you put the trim down on top of the trim, because you want to get a nice straight line on the wall, paint the tape with the trim color, not the wall color, the trim color, and that will help seal that edge. Does it do a great job? Well, I'm going to show you a video, and you're going to find out for yourself. The other option is frog tape. And I'm just going to do a little comparison. We're going to try, well, let's let the tape begin. A mistake that I'm surprised that I see so many painting contractors make, and certainly homeowners. The homeowners I'll give a pass to because they really don't know. But you need to use the best covering paint, especially if you're doing trim and you're not changing the sheen or the color. If you're changing the sheen or the color, you're almost always going to need 2 coats. Now there are some exceptions to that, but most of the time you're going to need 2 coats. You still, if you're putting, let's say you're painting trim white semi-gloss over top of white semi-gloss, you want to get the best covering white semi-gloss. These are 4 different brands that cover very, very well. If you can get this white to cover over white in 1 coat, you'll reduce the time about 15% of the total time to paint the whole room or the whole house or the whole project. White semi-glosses don't always cover really well. Adding 2 drops of black, and if you tell the person behind the counter, can you add 2 drops of black to this white semi-gloss, they know exactly what you're talking about. It will help the coverage immensely, and you'll never be able to tell that it's anything other than pure white. Hey, I bet you have some great painting tips as well. Please share them by putting them in the comment section below, and I'm going to make a part 2 video. It'd be awesome to share these great painting ideas, these tips and tricks with everybody, and we all become better painters. Thanks so much.